This video is going to go to a new place. Stefan asked questions that I've been speculating about, things from the realm of supernatural and emotion. What is going on in the background that I haven't talked about in the videos because it goes kind of far for most people. No one quite gets the simple turn in and heal yourself stuff, let alone the bigger stuff. So it takes a certain person to understand this. And since Stefan is at a point where he's asking this, it's like, oh, yeah, okay. But I also want to say up front that there's nothing here that can be measured. We're going to have to infer this. We're going to have to look at it. We're going to have to look at it with our own personal experiences and our thought processes. This is a convoluted area. This emotional area and the fields and what we're living within is the reason why people think they can read minds and astral travel and why they get hits. I've had intuitive things happen to me in my life that I look at and go, that came from somewhere that wasn't in the physical world. I know that it happens. However, I needed to explain it. I never thought it was supernatural, but I thought something is there and I don't know what it is. People go there and people that think they talk to dead spirits or convince people of that it's charlatans, all because of this area right here that is so nebulous. It's not understood. Everybody gets a little bit of feeling with it. It's like something's magic there. These people have a great big connection. I'm going to go listen to them. And they don't. Everybody connects to it in a similar way. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. Stefan, I don't know how to approach this. I'm going to have to just start and see what happens. It's a huge thing. It's not just about the emotions we feel and the things that we're thinking, but also it's a bigger picture. Here's what I want to say. If we are in the midst of, let's say we're in a group of 100 people and everybody's doing this. Everybody. First, you just hear one person. Then you hear other people, then more and more. And the more that are doing that, the louder and louder it gets. Okay, it happens. We're operating in an area where we hear, and we're creating sounds that are within that hearing range, within that frequency range of the ear. And as it gets stronger, we hear it stronger. And if we move away from it, it gets softer. It moves away from us. Or let's say it never quits, it just continues. But the farther you move away from it, the more you don't feel it. However, the closer you get to it, the more I meant hear it. I'm going to suggest emotions are the same way. It'd be the same way in light. If there's a light, you get close to it, far away from it, it gets dim. The more lights that are on, the brighter it gets. What we can see is that there's levels of intensity and energy that we're able to detect. The higher the energy gets, the more we realize that. The lower it gets, the more we realize that in our physical senses. And I'm going to have to use some technical terms here. There's just no way around it. When I mean higher levels, what I mean is amplitude. It's louder. It's like ooh. It's not ooh. It's not changing frequency. It's changing volume. It's the same frequency, but it's louder. Now we also have a frequency range. There's a certain point. Hearing range is like 20 kilohertz to 20 hertz or something like that. I can't hear that high. I don't think any human can. Mine's probably more like around 10 kilohertz or something. I'm getting old enough. It's probably lower than that. I say what to people a lot lately. Okay. That might be because of selective hearing. Anyway, so it's coming through so the frequency changes throughout the range, but it can also change in amplitude. It can get louder or softer, but it has to be within that frequency range. That energy has to be there for us to hear it. The eye, same thing is going to happen. The energy has to come from, it starts out in an area that we would call ultraviolet. We get sunburns from that sort of stuff, but we can't see it. However, when it becomes violet, it comes into the visible range, and it goes through the entire spectrum until it gets to red, and then when it shifts down into infrared, well, then it becomes a heat sensation. We can now feel it with our skin. So but it drops. We can no longer see it visually, but we sense it in other ways. What I'm going to suggest is that the same thing is happening in the spiritual world. There's a sixth sense, and that's where this is where it gets convoluted, that sixth sense. And what I'm going to say is this: we have our ears for hearing, eyes for seeing frequencies, but we have a central nervous system which detects the field of emotion. That's natural, that we're naturally detecting a field of emotion. All right, I'm going to leave that right there and go read your comment here. I want to address a couple of things specifically and then get into that. Your questions didn't go to there, but your question is going to put us in a place that it's important to understand that we are in a field. It's like we're in an ocean and we're flowing through currents, but these are emotional currents. and we're in our local areas doing that. If we there's a reason to imply this and to go through it and to reason it through. And when one goes through certain processes, you begin to see that your flow is suddenly different. However, the emotions are something different. Okay, let me read that with the comment. Thank you for the video, brother. It's always good to have these conversations. They help us stay focused while we strengthen ourselves in this material. You betcha. Thank you. I see that balance is necessary because if we lean too much towards stoicism or some form of emotional detachment, we may avoid accumulating burdens within ourselves, but we would become emotionless. On the other hand, if we are overly emotionally sensitive, then we certainly struggle with carrying those burdens. Emotions may be our greatest tool or our biggest challenge in the world. When we're born, the world offers us all sorts of things, and life brings numerous situations. In that sense, I believe it is a great advantage if we manage to be in the world, but not of the world, as Jesus said. All right, I'm going to stop right here and talk about some of this. First of all, does everybody else know what this be in the world and not of the world, as Jesus said? I'll stop that one first. Judge not, lest you be judged. For the judgment with which you judge, you're going to live through our judgments. Be in the world and not of it means you live here in planet Earth, but you're not a product of your life experiences. Be in the world and not of it. Live here, live happily, live detached from all these things that you grab onto in life. All right, now let's go back up to the question, or the first part. The stoicism, I see that balance is necessary because if we lean too much towards stoicism or some form of emotional detachment, we may avoid accumulating burdens within ourselves, but we would become emotionless. And then the next one, on the other hand, if we become emotionally oversensitive. All right, I'm going to tell you this right here. This is what I realize now. Your brain type is going to dictate the level of your emotion. There are people who can disconnect from things that some certain stuff doesn't bother them. They're going to get caught up in the same emotions in their own group, but they're not going to experience it in the same globally. Also in this field that we're sensing, they do not sense it at the level that we do. There's going to be, and your brain type is stuck. And the reason is you were evolved. You have to step back and think of us as not, we have so much knowledge, and it is hard for us to get out of our modern biases and understand what we are and where we came from and what these are operating in the background. Now we're living in society with these processes driving us, and we don't know what those processes are. If we understand those processes, then and we can manage them better, it's going to change our life. However, if you've got this brain type, you're not going to be able to be a stoic and turn it off and say, I'm just going to disconnect. The only way you can do that is to not be aware of it. And what is that? Fast as to the world. Fasting, not physical, spiritual. Which is what? Mental. What am I taking in? Stop taking stuff in. It's going to frazzle you. You have to fast as to the world. You got to turn away from it because there's nothing you can do except look at it and go, it's going to tear you up. Fasting is to the world is to stop taking that stuff in and becoming poor in spirit, poor in mind. It's letting go of those judgments, becoming pure. If you're aware of it, your brain is going to be saying, I need to process this. It was a necessary component for the group for an evolutionary survival. It went on for millions of years. It's still going on in animals today. Watch animals drinking at the water. They're constantly wary. They do a little bit of stuff and they're just looking. That's kind of what we have going on, except now we're not watering at the hole with the lion coming at us. Society is different now. Those mechanisms are driving us, but we don't know what the hell they're for and what they're doing. We got to unwrap ourselves from it. So we have to understand it's a natural process. Okay, so as far as, one thing I want to say here is that I remember a time in life I had to make some sort of mental transition as I'm going through this. I'm realizing I'm automatically doing things that are proper for evolution. You're making judgment calls. You're looking at people and saying things like, well, they're ugly. They're this, they're that, they're something. We're always doing that. And you know what? That's a part of the brain. If you don't find things appealing and non-appealing, what are we doing? Okay, religions try to teach us, or at least Buddhism, Taoism, things like that, teach you to stop making those calls. There's times I would go through the grocery store, for example, and I'd be in there and there's just all manner of people in there. And I would look and I'm being cognizant this time of the judgment calls that I'm making. And I'm in my mind, I'm not saying it, I'm just doing my shopping, but I'm looking around at the same time and seeing somebody that I would normally judge a certain way. And I would say things like, that's a very beautiful person for they're a creature on this planet. They were born. They didn't have any choice over anything. They just show up. They're here, just like me. And they are a beautiful creature, even if it's not something that appeals to me, that's okay. They have beauty in their own right. Okay, so in the process of doing this, I'm softening my mind and softening the judgment and becoming aware of the fact that I'm making these hard calls. The only way, if that person right there is really beautiful, the only way I can know that is because over there, that person has to be ugly. That I am making a comparison there. So what we need to do is perhaps change the way we're thinking there. Instead of saying this person's beautiful and that person's ugly, is to say both people are beautiful. This one appeals to me. That one does not. Taking on a different way of thinking that is not so harsh and so critical, because we become that very same thing. Pretty soon we're judging all life that way. We've got these hard things in place. This is good. That's bad. This is good. And of course, that's a necessary thing for, when it's important. We need to know good from bad, but we're living life and judging people and bringing those same mechanisms in. Those survival mechanisms are being employed I don't want to tell you what I'm afraid of. I got molested and it is so fearful to me. But what's that fear? What does it feel like? It feels like a lion is after me. That's the fear. That's why we can't talk about things that bother us. I'm afraid of telling you that. But what's the fear? The fear is over the top. We should be able to talk about things. All right. So if you were to, I'm not going to look this up right now. I've done this in the past where I'm trying to figure out what is going on. I put a lot of effort to things. I also, in a work environment one time, it had gotten very hostile in a group of people, and we had to go to some sort of I don't remember what they called it. We had to go to a professional center where somebody did an intervention sort of. I think that's what it was. Took several days of going there. It was just part of the job. It was a government workplace, and things were getting out of control. And one of the things that we did was we all had to take personality tests, and I tested out as the INFP. And there's a point where I'm realizing that there's something that I'm very different than people here. And they recognize that as well. They let me know in different ways, so not always very good ways. I couldn't function with them very well. I was so different. And I also have these really tight standards that I have to function with. And you're working with people that don't have those standards. It became very hostile for me, caustic. It was toxic. It was a toxic environment. But there was all kinds of people that some of the people had like road rage issues and things like that. They're out driving government vehicles and acting like morons. Yeah, it was a very bad thing. Anyway, the whole personality thing, and I began to look even in that group and realize, you know what, this is that balance. Most people are this way, and they're the kind of people that actually act this way and do this way and think this way. And you're like, that is so unreasonable. How ridiculous. You can't even talk to the people. They just, shut up. It's like talking to a Pee Wee Herman. I know you are, but what am I? I know you are, but what am I? It's like, come on. We're not going to resolve anything that way. Okay, so I don't think they're watching at this point, so they don't have the attention span to get through something like this. All right, what I want to do is try to gather some things up now and just let's go talk about what this environment would be like 2 million years ago or whatever. Long ago, as humans are evolving, we have not yet managed irrigation and crops, animal husbandry at that point in time in our life. We're still hunting and foraging, making simple tools, and living in small groups. The group can't get too big unless there's a lot of resources, but the group has to be, you can't be out there, you have to reproduce. The group has to be big enough to continue to self-perpetuate. So there has to be food, there has to be reproduction, there has to be enough people for that to happen, knowing that life was, probably very few people made it to adulthood, and adulthood was probably, 25 or 30 maybe. So life for a long time would be that way. And that within this group, eventually what happens is little variations are made, and the group has to adjust. If it gets out of balance, it doesn't work. So it's forced to be kept into a balance. But the best way the group survives is by having that big, large baby engine in the middle of everything. And it has less awareness. It has the capacity to feel fear, but not as much. It feels fear very much, actually, but it doesn't. But it feels it all the time, whether it's necessary or not. Whether there's danger or not, it feels like there is always danger. Why? Because it has to. You're looking at animals coming in. You got Families of, well, they're not families. I'm sure it's a group of almost like primates, but getting bigger and, walking on two legs at some point, but very fragile. And that that group has to always, if anything comes into that group, you don't even process it as whether it's good or not. You see things, there's always this element of danger. And if it scares you, you just kill it. Why? Because 9 times out of 10, it's probably there to eat you anyway. So the safest thing is to always kill it. And that's how they're going to work. You, however, in helping the group, you have evolved in a way that you can't stand being in that group. You're going to be driven to the outside. There's too much chatter. There's too much stuff that's unnecessary. But you also have this spatial awareness that says, we're not just in this little group. We're in a big space out here. You kind of like become, a perimeter guard. You go to the outside. The introverts go to the outside. They don't go far away from the group. You can't. But you're there. You also develop this capacity to sense the fear and the joy at a higher level than most people. And you can't turn it off. And you have to be able to process and differentiate. Your mind is stuck being analytical, processing for the group. You're acting as the group's brain and as the group's barometer, emotional barometer. Fear. You're the one that feels viscerally the fear and the joy, as do they. However, you are processing what is supposed to be fear and what is supposed to be joy where they don't. And your awareness is just bigger. So this is what we're stuck with right now. As a seeking person later on, what you have to understand is that you've got a brain type that is not like other people's brain types, but it's this one that has this higher capacity to sense. Everybody senses to some degree. That's why they get caught up in all the supernatural stuff. It's like, oh yeah, there's something there, all right. It is. But if everybody feels it at some point, you go, you know what? It's an energy. And in the same way my eye sees light and my ear hears sound, my central nervous system senses emotion. From a high joy to a low frequency, fear. Shame, hurt, something, fear. Shame comes from fear. It's a thought process. Shame isn't something that an animal would have. Shame is something that is a mental process. However, once we start evolving into humans and we start having compassion and things like that, then suddenly shame is going to be a component part of anybody that realizes I've done something bad and I feel bad about it. I'm sure there's a point in time where you do something bad in the past, you didn't feel bad about it. You just go on. You don't have time to feel bad about things. You have to move on. Today, we're feeling bad about everything and not moving on. So things have gotten kind of out of whack. All right, now, here's how I think it works. They've identified a significant amount of brain that is active with the 5 senses. There's a lot of brain and there's a lot of brain activity, though, that it's really kind of not understood. I think what happens is these things are coming in from the environment, these intuitive hits and things like that on this emotional channel, that they're coming in through the central nervous system, and then they enter into the brain, and then they come into our consciousness. And because of that, and because they're not coming through the 5 senses, it's like, where the hell did that come from? I didn't see that. I didn't hear it. I didn't smell, taste, or touch it. Where did it come from? That's freaking magic right there. And you go, no. What you heard, was it magic? What you saw, was it magic? What you tasted, was it magic? If you felt an energy field, was it magic? I think we're feeling energy fields. But within those fields, as the brain gets more complex, like I said, the story I told you, you said my 747 story and things like that. I can look at my life and go, you know what? It almost looks to me like there was some course that I'm forced to be on. And I'm here not because of choices I made, but because of something that was in place. I don't believe that that's true. But I can remember instances in, like when my brother did take his life, when he committed suicide. I was at the table. There was a part I look back on now, and coming from that home where there was a lot of abuse, there was fear, and you would get whippings with a belt. And I was at the age of almost 10, helping my brother with his ABCs. I'm at the table. I'm fidgety. I'm nervous. I want to go outside and play with Larry. He's out there. He had been talking to me earlier that day about heaven. And it was a Sunday. We came home from church. And but I'm sitting there at the table, and I'm something in my head is compelling me to disobey. And I'm sitting there. I'm looking around the corner, and I see Mom, who would be the one whipping me, she's sitting in the living room reading a newspaper. And I thought, with just a little glance, she could look and see that I wasn't sitting there. And my brother Steve would make noise. This whole thing is going on. I'm going through this mental routine of trying to get out and trying to disobey, and I don't know why. I don't. At some point, my brother goes to the bathroom, and I sneak out. I'm like, I'm going to get out of here. I don't know why. I'm supposed to help him learn his ABCs, and if I don't, I'm going to get whipped with a belt. But something is driving me. As I'm I'm sneaking on a jacket and reaching for the doorknob, it felt like a palm hit me right in the head. It just stopped me dead in my tracks, and I just felt viscerally for half a second, Larry's dead. And I shook that off. It was like, that's crazy. Where did that come from? And then I went and found him, and he indeed had hung himself, and he was dead. And I'm sitting there realizing that at some point in time, he is hanging, and it's taking a little bit of time, probably not long, but it's not instant. And there's a suffering and a mental anguish. He and I were super close. So I sense this, nobody else does. Okay, so if it works, it's only for me. It's not for everybody else. If he's generating that, he's generating it to me. My mind is tuned into him. But where did Larry's dead come from? I don't understand this as a kid. I'm asking, what happened? Where does it go? And people are telling you things that don't sound right at all. Sunday school teacher telling you, oh, God just loved him so much he wanted to be with him. I was like, up yours, God. We're getting beat down here. Somebody else said, oh, it was Larry's spirit talking to you. Larry never talked about himself in third person. I was like, nope, that was not Larry. It was God trying to talk to you. Again, thanks God. We're praying every night for you to come in here and help us stop getting beat. And then you're going to, what? I'm abandoned here now. Now I get the beatings alone. Thanks God. No, none of that made sense. But at some point I realized later on, okay, the knowledge of him being dead was something that was in my mind. Dead was a term I knew. Larry was a term I knew. So Larry's dead came from my brain. The knowledge of his death came from the emotional field. But Larry's dead as a way to process it came from my brain. That's the easiest way to explain that. And it makes perfect sense to me. It's not supernatural. The 747 story is a little bit different. I'm not going to get into that one here because I don't know how to explain that one. That one is a big intensity one. I think that it works the same way, though. It's been a path that I've been on with intensity for a long time. And I think part of the intensity, part of the motor was that childhood and the things that happen. They can set you on your having the right brain, having the right experiences that set you on the course. Okay, so getting back to this, though, so I think really with it, that these emotional fields are something that is very natural, but we don't know it. We're not aware of it. We're not consciously aware of it. A lot of times I'm in a situation where maybe I'm driving and I'm like, wow, I feel anxious. And a lot of these cars get out of the way. And I'll stop and go, wait a minute. I'm in no hurry. Where is that coming from? You look around, it's coming from other people. As soon as you become aware of that, you go, okay, I'm disconnected from it. You don't realize that you're feeling the emotion of the crowd. Standing in line, being impatient. Then you go, I don't know where to go. What am I impatient for? You look around and people are like, oh, I got to hurry up, changing lines or something like that. You go, okay, I'm picking up on the crowd. You have to look at that for yourself, though. And then when you're aware of it and you cease to connect with it, then you go, okay, I see how that's working. But every individual has to do it on their own. There's no meter, there's no scale, there's no way to measure it. And there's people that are so unsensitive that they're going to say, there's nothing there at all. You're crazy. You're getting it. They don't have the connection. The reason it looks mystical, again, because it comes in through, it comes into our mind in an awareness like that looks like it's magic. Also, and this is very important to consider when you think it through, if the emotion comes from someplace that isn't from one of your senses, then you just think it's yours. This comes from me. You don't know that it's coming from somewhere else because we don't know that sense is there, that central nervous system is bringing in that emotion. So we just think, well, when I feel this is from within me. It may not be. It's not coming in from the other senses, but that sense is obviously there. And that's the very sense that when we feel good as a group, yep, that's important. This is joy. Yay, we move towards this. Fear, we move away from that. So these fields are naturally there in the same way that everything at some point is at a quantum level. That energy would be. It's almost like we're a little bit of a radio at some point, picking up on some invisible energy, but that invisible energy is very lightly emotion, and that helps the group to evolve. And right now, we are feeling that, and we're feeling all of the things that are within that group, or within that field, and what is happening in the world. And that would be the best way I can think of to explain everything that's happening. Okay, life evolves to survive its environment. So emotion would help us do that. We need to see, hear, know, we need to know what danger is. And a sensation that helps kind of advance you ahead of something's coming. You don't have to wait till you see it or hear it. You can kind of sense it coming. That's going to help you. That's going to help us survive. And that would be a very core, basic part of us that we're just simply not aware of, and it can't really be studied. When all of the guys, I don't know if you've heard Donald Hoffman, I can't remember the other guy's name. There's, it'll come to me. These guys that do the, consciousness is fundamental, that we come from consciousness, all of that. They're all functioning through the same channel right here, trying to figure this stuff out here and saying, because this happens, then we must come from consciousness, that everything out there is conscious. And I don't think that that's the case. I think that it's this energy field that we have locally here that is simply not being understood. And it looks so mystical and magical. Boy, you can tag anything on it. And as I get through and talk about it, it's like, well, he just gave his own opinion anyway, which is really what it is. However, I think in my case, it's been spending a lot of time thinking about it, working through it, and then realizing that all of these judgments, as I got rid of them, and the anger that I had towards my mom, brother, all that kind of stuff, all of that had to be dissolved, and it did. I found a way to love everything and to appreciate life, and to understand that I just came from where I came from, and wah. Suck it up. Figure out what to do. You don't like it, then figure out what to do. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there and live your life not liking it, waiting to die so that life starts then or something like that. That's just that's not for us. That's for the masses. And as far as they're concerned, we're nutcases that think we're, whatever. But there's too many people in this realm, too, that are doing, even the preachers, all that crazy stuff. It's this emotional field right here. It's being capitalized. I don't think people really understand it, honestly. But it does get used and abused. Okay, so I don't know where I'm going to go with this video from here now. I think that what we understand is that we're flowing in those fields, the things that we're holding at an emotional level. It's not the memories. It's the way we're holding them emotionally. When you go through the material and every bad guy gets trapped away or buried under the sand, hidden away so that they can't do anything, or put under rocks or put in a net or anything like that happens, those are the bad, or the harpies defiling Phineas's food and getting sent away, that won't bother him anymore. All of those represent that right there, that those were the memories, the cyclical memories that were hurting you that have now been resolved. That's how we change our flow in that emotional field. That emotional field is how we flow together. The emotions are what is driving us underneath in the background. We're doing all kinds of physical things, saying, no, we just all like to read. That's why we're getting together in this group. Yeah, because it makes you feel good. These guys are doing this because we just like cars. Yeah, because it makes you feel good. We're really operating from emotions. And if we know that, it helps us rectify what we have that's getting us. It's like these judgments are little rudders that are taking us off course, got us spinning all over the place. I was on course. This keeps happening. That keeps happening. I get pulled off. How come it doesn't work? Get rid of these little damn things we're hanging on to, and it flows that way. And then once you see that, you realize, okay, that is probably what there is there. That this emotional field that we're flowing within, that my life comes from here, and it really sucks. But as I go through these processes and changes, it works out to the point that I retire early and my house is paid off. And I can do whatever I want to. I mean, within reason. That's not true. What I mean is on a day-to-day basis, I don't have to go to work or do anything like that. I can tinker and go through my studies. And if I hadn't And those things all came about as just luck things towards the end of my working career too. It was just stuff was happening in a way that was like setting me up to be able to focus on these studies right here. And, all I can say is it's been a course all my life to get to this point. So I look at that and go, yes, if I believe that there's an emotional field that I'm working within and that my thoughts and the emotion I hold towards them is what's guiding me through there. And if I change the way I think about them, which changes their emotional condition from a negative to a at least benign. You can't say I got molested. I like that so much. You have to go, okay, I got molested. So what? You have to at least make it benign. Don't judge it in any way, shape, or form. Let it find ways of letting that stuff go, of understanding where we come from, all of that, the healing process. That is the difficult part, really right there. What happens after that, though? You don't even work on anything else. Your Father who sees in secret rewards you in secret. You'll just notice as life goes on that changes are happening. They might not seem okay at first, like, oh, I lost this job, or I have to move here, or something like that. And then you'll look back on it later and go, oh man, that was the best move. I see what's going on. I need to shut up and just go with the flow. Stop complaining about what's happening. I'm on the right course. If you are on the right course, I was. I didn't know that for a long time. In fact, I did a video on this one time. See that? The Potato Growers magazine. That's me with my aircraft on the front with the project director that contracted me. So I'm going through and trying to figure out what to do in life. I develop an aerial platform for taking georeferenced photographs of fields, crop fields, and you could see the damage in areas like that where the growth is. You could determine how much treatment you needed and whatnot. So right after doing that, 9/11 happened, and people started, or actually in the midst of that, 9/11 happened, and the FAA, but people were starting to fly model airplanes with cameras on them and things like that over stadiums, and the FAA just kiboshed all that. This right here, I built it all the way up, advanced it, and it just got shut down. Nope, it's not okay anymore. You cannot do that. And now they've got drones out. But for this short period of time, I had a lot of fun, and for one payment, you look back on it and go, that's exactly what needed to happen. Magic just kept happening for me. So I just look at it experientially and go, okay, I see how to function within this field for myself by changing mental processes, and that is what is happening, and that it is happening at it's like if you hear something you don't like the sound of, you want to move away from it. If you sense something that you don't like the feel of, you want to move away from it. You see something you don't like the looks of, you want to look away from it. They're not different processes. It's just a different frequency and a different, instead of an eye, ear, the central nervous system is a solid thing, but what's it picking up in the environment? It's sensing. That's how when people sense something, something's creeping up on me or something like that, you get those gut feelings and sensations. That's how it's working. Something is after you, and something in your mind is telling you something's after you, but you don't know it physically. That's happening from, I don't know, like the back door. How does the central nervous system in the brain make you aware of something? There's a process that's happening in there. And the more details you know, the more it can work. But yeah, anyway. And then people get in there and lie about all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I go do this and that and talk to spirits and astral travel and all that, which is just a bunch of horse crap. But humanity tends to like horse crap over truth. Okay, so Stefan, does that help? We're stuck feeling our emotions. You can't turn them off. Brain, yep. In the same way that they can't sense what you sense, you can't turn it off. So what we have to do is turn away from, to stop bringing in. We're taking the material real seriously here. Applying it to our life means fasting is to the world means stop looking at it. And resolving the odd against your brother, resolving all of the things that bother you, and then life flows better. That's the extent of it. However, that we emerge from this higher self, and this higher self up here, that's why I keep working at this too. There's something there. When the higher awareness was talking to me long ago, I didn't know what it was. It's like it was independent of me. When you're at night, if you haven't thought about it yet. You know, the times that you're waking up 3, 4 in the morning, tossing and turning, mental turmoil going on, every once in a while, a small voice will come in and tell you, hey, you got to just go to sleep, relax. What is that right there? It is, you're not asking it for help. It's coming and telling you what is out here that has the capacity to do that. And that's why they get out there with the whole consciousness is fundamental and things like that. When it's like, well, you know what? It's kind of a religious claim to say that almost. Anyway, all right. I don't know if this is helpful or not. It's probably very new, but at the same time, if you can imagine, you know what? We're just taking bands of frequencies, visual, audible, emotional, bands of frequencies, and we're picking them up in our environment. That would make the best sense. We got 5 senses. Why wouldn't there be a 6th? Why would there suddenly be, okay, there's not another sense. This is something that's magical and mystical. We evolved to sense the environment, and that was very helpful to us. Now we are stuck sensing our environment, the pain, all that stuff, and yep. But also, if we get used to things, if you were scared every day, it would be normal to you. If you find a way to have joy all the time and everything is okay and it's easy, that when the fear comes up, the fear is extreme. When it's really just swinging, it's not what we're used to. The human adjusts. And then when you get to a new level of inner belief that makes you feel a certain way that can bring you down or bring you up, in a short period of time, that will seem normal to you. We have to step out of ourselves and look at it. That balance of things, is it okay for me to have leftovers in my fridge and look in there and go, boy, I've eaten those for 2 days in a row. I want something different. I don't want to eat those tonight. I want to eat something different. Is that spoiled? It doesn't seem like anything at all to us. Yet you go back 200 years, out here where I am, maybe 150 years ago, cowboys out there on the range riding horses with maybe a gunny sack with some beans in it and a pan. And you hoped you had beans every day. And you might find a bone or something from time to time to throw in there to provide some seasoning to it. And that was an everyday thing. They would not have thought, gee, I don't want to eat these leftovers again. There's nothing else to eat. Life changes and we start at new points. And what might seem substandard to us at some point, 100 years ago, people would have looked at it and gone, God, you guys are spoiled. So we adjust, and it's really a matter of just trying to find your own way of feeling okay about things and not being connected. And at the same time, I think, well, we're kind of stuck on this planet that is evolving, and it's not going to be around forever. You know that. And the things are not going to, we don't want to look to the end, but you look at things and go, it's in bad shape. And you can't turn off from it. You have to look away from it. It's not going to change anything. It'll change whether or not we feel anguish. That's all. That's the only thing that's going to change. So yeah, trying to just look at things in a way that it's hard to look at that and not judge it. Yeah, it's like impossible. I don't know that there's a way to just feel good. I think at one point in time, Nirvana in the time of Buddha would have been different than Nirvana today because they didn't have media. They didn't see what was going on all over the place. They didn't have so much data, so much input. They're telling you to fast as to the world before there was even media. How bad have we made it since then? We got to back off and just understand that's society. That's here. Anyway, okay, I hope that helps. Ask any questions. I'm sure this is one of those things that's like, I think about this. I've never talked about it with anybody before, not very much. I think I've said little bits and pieces here and there, testing the waters, and nobody's really responded. You're the first person that went in with the emotion thing, and it's like, you know what? I think this is as big as hearing or seeing, but we're not aware of it. And if we were aware of it and thought that that's what it was and made some mental manipulations, you're going to find out that, okay, those things that I want, they happen automatically. Your Father who sees in secret rewards you in secret. That's kind of a no shit. Really. does. It works that way. But we have to resolve what hurts us. And it's like impossible to resolve things that are outside of you. I've resolved my own life experiences, things like that. I'm not connected with my family anymore, but that I had to get rid of the anguish. They're a part of the support that's, egomaniacally, selfishly driving America into oblivion, thinking it's number one, doing the right thing. Well, you can't, and that one you have to just fast this to the world. That one, turn away. I mean, looking at it and watching it is going to make you anguish, and it's going to change not a damn thing. What do? You got to make personal choices whether you want to spoon it into your face every day or to let it go. Knowing that, I mean, we're in a plane headed to a mountain. You can see it. They can't. The edge of a cliff. So it is burdensome. Yeah, absolutely. It really is. I get frazzled about it. I got to, about 6 years ago when I started getting into this full time. I've been doing the studies all my life, but as far as getting into it on just a day-to-day basis, about 6 years ago. And I slowly went from my work lifestyle, climbing mountains every day, to being a bookworm and sitting here and snacking and having a glass of wine at night. And here I am 6 years later, I'm into this. I'm put on some pounds and I'm getting old and I'm up to like a bottle of wine every night now. Is that good? Is that bad? I enjoy it. I don't go out and do anything. I'm not hurting anybody. Nah. Does it affect my life? It makes me happy. Is it going to shorten my life? I've done what I have to do. I don't want to go, no. But there's at some point you go, at some point in time, I'm going to be resting in peace. And for now, what do? I have to try to find ways to play and goof around. So you're having some wine, get a few toys to play with or something like that. Watching some videos in the evening or something. There's a point where I need to connect with people. I do. All right, I'm going to let this go. I'm at this point, I'm just rambling. Stefan, love you, brother. Ask any questions, details. If you hear me say something, it's like, well, what about that more? Can you elaborate on that or something like that, or give me more thoughts on that? I've had a life of electronics and design and development and doing things like that, where a lot of good stuff happened, and but I learned about the energy and the way all that stuff works, and at some point, it becomes applicable because it's like it's all energy. A radio wave that's generated by a human is simply a radio wave generated by a human. It doesn't violate the laws of nature. In fact, the universe is made up of radio waves. We're just learning to manipulate them. So we're in a natural process, but it looks magical. But there might be something else out there. There might be. Where do we come from? What is that higher awareness that says, hey, I'm out here? Let it go. Is it really out there, or is that a part of my mind naturally? We all do that. That's how we have inner dialogues. All right. Take care. See you in the next video.